Hey everyone, today in this video, I'm going to be comparing the ZOTAC Gaming. This is their Mech Hero A7647S pre-built gaming PC with the ZOTAC Gaming Mech Hero A7647STI. If you're interested in either PC, the links to them will be in the video description. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you'll notice with the computers is the differences in case. So we have the black case here and the white case here, and they are different in regards to their design and form factor. The black one's a little bit shorter. The I/O is on the side up at the top, whereas the white case a little bit taller. The I/O is on the front near your front panel cover. Other than that, internally, these computers are going to have the same guts. They both have the same AMD Ryzen 5 7600 CPU, 16 gigabytes of the exact same DDR5 RAM at 4800 megahertz, and they both have the exact same 1 terabyte NVMe SSD drive. Other than that, internally, we have an in-win power supply for the black one and an APEVA power supply for the white. The white one's going to have, I believe it's 800 watt power supply, whereas we might have a 600 or 650, a little bit smaller power supply in the black case. Other than that, really the big difference, not the parts and components, besides the GPU. We have our 4070 Super in the black case, and we have a 4070 Ti Super in the white case. So now let's see how they stack up against each other. So first, let's get the cost out of the way, because that'll help us make better sense of all the other data that we're going to be looking at. And you'll see that the A7647S, the black PC here, is going to be a couple $100 cheaper than the A7647STI because, well, you already guessed it, the GPU differences. That's really the only difference here, because you're paying for basically everything else that's exactly the same. So the white one's going to be more expensive, as you would expect, because it has a better, more powerful GPU. Now, in regards to actual performance, first we're looking at Crystal Disk Mark read speeds in megabytes per second. You'll see they're very, very similar to each other. The black one actually slightly outperformed the white PC, but again, they have the exact same drive and ASRock motherboard. Looking at the write speeds, nearly identical here, just 2 megabytes per second difference. Moving right along to CPU-Z, you'll see our single thread score here, 764 versus 716. So again, fairly neck and neck, but in this case, the white PC is slightly outperforming the black one. Same can be said with our multi-thread score here for CPU-Z, a little bit lower, right under 5,000 for the black, and closer to 6,000 for the white. But things tend to even out as we look at Geekbench 6 with the single core score. There's about a 6-point difference between both PCs. Slightly higher difference when we look at the multi-core score for Geekbench 6, but both right within each other. Looking at Cinebench R24, the black PC actually edges out the white one by 1 point. But the white one takes the lead again when we look at the multi-core score. It's slightly better than the black one. Another way to look at all the data that we just looked at is the average performance percent increase. So on average, regardless of the program, typically you could expect 4% better performance in those tests with the white PC versus the black. Now let's take a deep dive into the GPU performance to get a better feel for which one you should get. Is it worthwhile to upgrade to the 4070 Ti Super in this build? Because as you're seeing, it does cost a couple $100 more, which is why the white build is more expensive. You'll also notice that the GPU, the 4070 Ti Super, is going to be longer than your 4070 Super. If you're buying the GPUs individually, that could actually make a difference, but ZOTAC does provide you with the correct case dimensions to fit both GPUs, so nothing you have to worry about there. Same with the width. The 4070 Super is going to be 2 slots wide, where 2.5 slots is going to be taken up with the 4070 Ti Super. So that's something you want to consider with the same motherboard if you need more space, if you're adding additional expansion cards. In regards to power, ZOTAC Gaming has you covered with both builds and their power supplies, but you will notice that the Ti Super will use about 65 watts more power. You'll also see a difference in VRAM. Both have GDDR6X memory, 12 gig capacity on the 4070 Super, 16 gig capacity on the Ti Super. You'll also notice a difference in boost clock speeds. Typically, the higher the better. This is measured in megahertz, 2490 for the Super and 2625 for the Ti Super. Same can be said with CUDA cores, 5888 CUDA cores for the Super, 7680 for the Ti Super. Now, looking at some gameplay footage and benchmarks, you'll see that on average for 1080p Forza 5, you can expect about a 20 FPS swing in favor of the Ti Super. That holds up for 1440p as well, 149 FPS versus 168. Then looking at Rainbow Six 1080p, you'll see for some reason the 4070 Super actually scored higher than the Ti Super. We're not sure why that is, because you'll notice at 1440p they reverse again and the Ti Super comes out on top, which is what you would expect. Looking at Assassin's Creed 1080p, you'll see 165 FPS for the Super and 176 FPS for the Ti Super. 1440p, similar results here, 126 to 147. Borderlands 3 1080p, you'll see only a 4% difference in performance between both builds. That separates a little bit more at 1440p, 116 versus 130. Now, another way to look at this data is the average FPS percent increase or change between both computers. On average, we found, looking at all of our data in test, you can expect about a 9% better performance out of our Ti Super. So on average, expect about 9% better FPS per game. How does that translate to the cost of the GPUs? Well, to get that 9% boost in performance, you'll be spending 40% more. But don't lose hope yet. The good news here is if we look at the PC cost, the percent increase going from model to model, you'll find it's only a 20% increase to upgrade to the pre-built with the 4070 Ti Super. So you get the 9% boost in gaming between the models for only 20% more. I'm not saying that's fantastic, but again, it's not as bad as going to 40% increase for that 9%. And don't forget, on average, this build overall, not just in gaming, performed about 4% better. So there are some gains that you're actually getting upgrading between the models with the GPU. So with all that information out of the way, let me share with you my final thoughts. I think if you're torn between these two PCs, 95% of you out there will enjoy just using the regular A7647S. I feel like the value is a lot better. If you strictly just care about gaming performance, then you have no choice but to spend 20% more to get that 9% boost in performance for all of your games, where every FPS matters to you. But I think most of you out there would rather have this version here with a couple $100 left in your pocket to buy a monitor, keyboard, mouse, headset, upgrade maybe the RAM, the storage, things along those lines. The good news is though, these are really high quality builds using name brand off-the-shelf parts and components, and you're not buying into an obsolete system. They're not giving us AM4 socket or DDR4. No offense if you're using those. I'm still using those. But you're having some of the latest and greatest, so down the road, if you want to upgrade your CPU or your RAM, you'll have all those parts and components readily available. They're quiet builds, they look nice, great cable management. You can tell ZOTAC spent time actually making a nice pre-built system.